Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. Today we're talking all about service dogs, pit bulls, which I have grown to love in the last year because of Gigi coming into our family, and the Animal Farm Foundation. Now, before we get started, you may remember I actually interviewed the executive director, Stacy Coleman, about a year ago when COVID hit, talking about how they were bringing animals via Zoom into like nursing homes and things like that. So today I am joined by Nikki, and hopefully Fiona will be joining in a little bit talking about her service dog. So Nikki, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, I love that intro. I was a little jamming out there. It's so cute. Great job with that.
So let's talk about how you got involved with the Animal Farm Foundation.
I have been with Animal Farm Foundation for about 8 years now. I have loved animals my entire life, as most people I think do. And I have a dog myself. I had two. One passed away in 2020, unfortunately, but we do have another one. And I was moving, so I was looking for a job in a new town, and I had an opportunity. I had a lot of administrative experience, so I had started there, not really knowing how much goes into owning a dog that's labeled a pit bull and what that all involves. So I had started just as doing administrative stuff, and the 8 years that I've been there, I have learned so much about dogs and about how much dogs and people go hand in hand, and dogs live in the context of people. So I really grew to understand that whole thing. So I think we think about dogs and people separately a lot, when really it's about the people and the dogs.
So let's talk about what you guys are doing with pit bulls, because pit bulls get a very bad rep. And honestly, I will have to say that I kind of was on the side of caution with pit bulls, but now since Gigi's come into our life, I can't imagine not having Gigi in our life at all, because she's probably one of the sweetest dogs ever. Matter of fact, she is probably sweeter than our 10-year-old Shih Tzu. So,
oh, well, that's so great. I've seen that a lot, where I think it's so important for people to have some great experiences with dogs that are labeled pit bull, because they are just dogs, and we should start all treating them the same way. We really, and hopefully Fiona can talk to you guys about our service dog program in a little bit, but some other things we started this year is working with housing insurance. So a lot of people, if they have dogs that are labeled pit bull, or sometimes other labels like German Shepherds or Doberman Pinschers, when they go to get insurance for their housing, or they go to rent a property, they run into the issue of, my insurance doesn't allow your dog, or the homeowner's insurance will say, we're not going to insure you because of your dog. And that's a big reason why people surrender their dogs to animal shelters. I think most people will go to the ends of the earth for their dogs. But unfortunately, there's a really big barrier there with the housing insurance industry. And what we found is we really got involved in the housing insurance arena this year, and we're seeing that there's really no actuarial data that there's no reason why they have these breed restrictions on housing. So we're saying, like, knocking on the insurance companies' doors this year saying, hey, what's going on with this? Why are you using these restrictions? And really talking to people about how it not only discriminates against you or your dog, it's discriminating against you because of the way that your dog looks. And that's not fair. There shouldn't be any discrimination in insurance industries. There's committees that make sure there's no discrimination. So we're talking to those committees too as well, and saying, hey, look, like, this is really discriminating against the people who own these dogs, and this really needs to stop. And one of the things that we did to help really show the insurance commissioners in your state that this is a problem. If you've had any issues with getting homeowners insurance, or you've had trouble renting because of the way that your dog looks, you can actually reach out to your state commissioners and let them know what's going on. I actually, before we started, had no idea what an insurance commissioner was or what they did. But their job is to protect the public. And they need to know when the public and the consumers are being discriminated against. So we have a website called Dogs, People, and HousingInsurance.org. It's separate from AnimalFarmFoundation.org. We welcome you to share that website, to go on that website. And it's a very laid out, very easy for everybody who's interested. We have sample templates on, what to say, how to send it, where to send it. We have a list of each state commissioner. So you can go right to your state, find your commissioner, find out who your commissioner is, where to send a letter, how to file a complaint online. Let them know that this is a problem, that this is something that you're struggling with, or that you've struggled with in the past, is finding insurance for your pet or for yourself because of your pet.
Now, honestly, other places discriminate against pit bulls and Rottweilers and German Shepherds as well, because I know one of the name brand companies, pet companies that you can go into, they don't allow them to participate in any type of function that they have. Why are they given such a bad name?
The media has done a really good job at perpetuating the myth that these dogs are more dangerous than any other dogs. And there's outdated studies that people reference a lot, studies that have been since determined to be inaccurate. So because of those two things, and going back to the media, I just want to say there's some research out there that, we find that even if a dog creates some injury happens because of a dog and the media wants to report about it, they're misreporting the breeds of the dogs a lot of the time, because just like sharks, when you put a shark in a headline, people want to click on it. When you put Pitbull in a headline, it makes the story more exciting and clickable, and the media wants those clicks. So they've done a really great job at just perpetuating that myth. And Pitbulls it hasn't always been about Pitbull dogs. If you look throughout the years, there's been dogs that have been stereotyped going back into history. German Shepherds, Bloodhounds, Spitz even. So it's sort of a perpetuation that keeps happening. So our job now is to stop. The buck stops here. Sure. And we're going to stop. We're not going to blame any other dogs for anything. There's been so many advances in learning about the canine genome and dogs and dog behavior that we know that you can't look at a dog and say it's going to behave a certain way. You can't look at a dog and know what's in its DNA. So we want to stop it here and say dogs are dogs, and let's move forward and focus more on being a responsible owner, looking at who you are as a dog owner. Are you leashing your dog when you're supposed to be leashing your dog? Are you licensing your dogs? Are you, taking all the proper precautions as a dog owner, as all dog owners should?
You keep mentioning German Shepherd, and I will say when I was growing up, we had a German Shepherd, and she was probably one of the sweetest dogs we had ever had. She loved to play she was an outside dog, and we had a poodle. He wasn't the bigger one, and he wasn't a toy poodle. He was like the mid-sized one, and he loved to play with her, and she would get enough of him. I still remember stories because her name was Coyote, and my dad called her Mrs. Gazop. My dad had come up with some weird names for our dogs. But like when storms were coming in, because in North Carolina, we always got hurricane. We always have hurricanes because we're on the coast. And so we would bring her inside, and Peanuts would try to play with her, and she would just turn around and she'd just whomp him upside the, the nose with the paw, and Peanuts would back away. But then when Peanuts would run underneath the couch, she would try to follow him under the couch, and unfortunately she couldn't fit. But she was one of the sweetest dogs ever, and so I can't even imagine with the German Shepherd. And do you think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you said media, but also movies? A lot of times you see the most vicious dogs are the pit bulls, the German shepherds, the Rottweilers, and everything like that. Do you think that's one of the reasons why?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not going to do a good job explaining it, but I know that Uncle Tom's Cabin, I don't know if you're familiar with that movie at all, but they had bloodhounds in that movie, I believe, and that was a big part of why those dogs got discriminated against. So movies definitely, they do play a big role. I mean, think about Cujo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh, I don't even thought about Cujo.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what, besides the housing insurance, what else is the Animal Farm Foundation doing to help create a positive, like the buck stops here against these dogs?
So our service dog program was started to help change the stereotypes of dogs that are labeled pit bull, because, a dog is a dog is a dog, as I said before. And just because of the way that you look doesn't mean that you can't do the work of purpose-bred, pure-bred dogs. If you have the personality type for that job, you can do that job. So we take dogs from shelters. We go out, and of course, with COVID, we've slowed down and with the traveling out to shelters, but we've had shelters transport some dogs to us during COVID. And we take a look at the dog's personality and see, do you like to do certain things that service dogs like to do? And we train those dogs to be service dogs for people. We've trained mobility dogs and hearing dogs and psychiatric service dogs, all dogs that came from shelters that labeled them a pit bull dog. So it doesn't matter what you look like, it just matters that you have the personality to do something. So it's been really great for our people that get those service dogs to go out into the community and to show that, these dogs are just dogs.
And actually, I was sent a video that I actually want to play right now because I think it kind of explains everything about, and then we'll jump off from there. So that sound good?
All right, great.
At Animal Farm Foundation, our mission is to bring dogs and people together to end discrimination. And there's no better way to do that than working with folks who depend on dogs for equal access and full enjoyment of their lives. So it's important for us that we can fight stereotypes by finding dogs labeled pit bulls in the shelter and prove that they can do the same work traditionally reserved for purebred and purpose-bred dogs. So we're just turning that paradigm on its head to make that difference.
The impact of the service dog program that we have at Animal Farm is so much bigger than anyone could imagine, because it's not just the individual dogs and the individual people. It's their families get to see them thrive. The dogs are in communities where they get to see them thrive. We get to work with shelters and see other animals thrive.
The dogs that we choose to do the service dog work, for us, we call it work, but for the dogs, we don't want it to feel like work. We want it to feel like their lives are full and enriched and have a good connection and a happy life with their handler, even though they're working to give their handler equal access that we all enjoy. The dogs that are in this program don't really work a day in their lives. They're dogs that are feeling happy and satisfied in what they do each day.
Animal Farm matches dogs with clients by looking at the client's individual needs and then looking at the dogs in our care and what they can provide. Each dog can do a different job. Each handler needs something different, but we also have to match the personality of the dog and the handler together. So we visit shelters. There's a whole process that we go through, starting with just a simple walk through the kennel. When we're looking for dogs that have a really solid personality, are physically solid, meaning they don't have any physical issues. Their personality and temperament needs to be good with everything. So they need to be good with all people of all sizes. They need to be good with other dogs. The dogs have to be outgoing, friendly, and not show any aggression at all in a kennel. And they need to tolerate any kind of prey animals like cats and squirrels and things like that.
We are really fortunate, again, turning the paradigm on its head, to have a relationship with Rikers jail, where the dogs that often become service dogs go through a training period at Rikers. And just like every sort of incarceration facility, it can get pretty chaotic there. Lots of noises, lots of sounds, people coming and going, new people all the time. So our dogs learn a lot about what it means to cope with a day-to-day life and what it is like running into new things and novel experiences. And we learn a lot about our dogs and how they're going to handle it when something new or strange pops up into their environment.
Continuous training for our clients is very important because it solidifies the bond. Up front, it's important because the client needs to learn everything that the dog knows how to do. But further on down the line, the clients sometimes come up with other needs, and the dog needs to be retrained for additional needs for our clients. Animal Farm Foundation gets all of its dogs from shelters and provides them to our clients at no cost to the client. We then provide training for the dog and client for the life of the dog at no cost. Everything with the service dog program is rewarding. We get to save lives of dogs that may or may not have made it out of shelters. We get to have relationships with really awesome dogs, and then we get to meet really great people and have relationships with them, and then we get to watch the dog go on and be successful with their person.
The impact that this program has on the lives of the people who participate, of course, it's immense. And they can all speak for themselves and let you know what a difference it's made for them. Sure, I assume that the family of the folks who have the dogs are thankful that their loved ones can get out and have that equal access. But I know just the visual, just seeing these dogs do the work that was reserved for traditionally looking dogs or purebred, purpose-bred dogs, it's changing the minds of everyone they meet in their communities. We are impacting lives of people that we haven't even met yet, and I'm so grateful. If you'd like to learn more about what we do at Animal Farm Foundation, please visit us at animalfarmfoundation.org.
This program is made possible in part by
And we're back. So, Nikki, let's talk about the partnership with Riker Prison. How did that come about? Do you know how that came about?
Yeah. So Rikers had originally been working with another organization who could no longer do the program anymore. And luckily, the trainer there down at Rikers is friends with our director of behavior and training, Bernice, and she called her up and said, is this something that Animal Farm Foundation would be interested in doing? And we were like, absolutely. Very excited to be involved in this program, especially because we get dogs that need to be okay with everything for the service dog program. They have public access. They're going out and about, and they're in situations that normal pet dogs usually aren't in. So for dogs to have to go into a jail for 8 weeks and be in situations that aren't normal situations and see how they do with them. Are they just like, cool, that's fine, and they move on? Great, like let's try them for our service dog program. And then some dogs, being in there, we might see things that are like, oh, well, great dog for a pet dog, but it is not happy in this environment and is not going to be happy doing public access stuff, and are better off just going into pet dogs. So we get to learn so much about the dogs that are going into that program, and we're so lucky enough to have the participants be able to teach the dogs basic training while they're in there. So then when they get out, we're ready to start doing the service dog training aspect of the program.
So what happens to the dogs that aren't aren't a perfect fit for the service dog program?
They get adopted. We adopt them out through our website. We are in a small community. We advertise them accordingly. So it's very few. We don't have a big adoption program because mostly we're training service dogs at our facility, but anybody that doesn't get adopted or doesn't go through the program gets adopted out right through us. So we do have a couple available dogs listed on our website if anybody's interested in checking it out, and we're up in the Dutchess County, New York area.
Now, how does all this service dog training and everything is provided at no cost for the people that need service dogs, but how does Animal Farm able to supplement their cost?
We are privately funded, so most of our costs come from one funder. However, we do get donations from the public. The more donations that come in through the public, the more dogs we can provide to people that need them. So two different ways.
So if they want to donate, they can just go to animalfarmfoundation.org and contact somebody there, or is there a donate page on there?
Yep. So you go to animalfarmfoundation.org. There's a little donation button right on the corner of the screen. So you can just click on that and donate right through our website.
Now, I love the fact that you're going through and you're looking at shelter dogs that are normally overlooked and the ones that are normally people don't think they're lovable and adoptable. And you're saving their lives, but you're also training them to save basically the lives of others to kind of help them get out of their shells. So let's talk about that whole purpose. When they originally started the program, were they just focusing on pit bulls or were they focusing on other ones? And how did it come about to where now you're doing service dogs for a lot of people with no cost to them?
We started with pit bulls because we've been working with pit bulls since the organization started. Since I think the mid 80s, Animal Farm Foundation has been around, and we really wanted to start the program to help remove those stereotypes for dogs. And I think that the clients really love to be able to help us remove those stereotypes, but as well, it's just, it's amazing to see the interaction between the clients and the dogs and how much more comfortable they are and how much more supported they feel to have those dogs by their side. That's, I think, the most rewarding thing to see with the program.
So what the service dogs, where the people that have the service dogs, what do they suffer from?
We do mobility service dogs. So the dogs are task trained to help open doors or pick stuff up off the ground if they're not able, it's harder for them to pick things up off the ground. We train hearing dogs. So the dogs will alert to a fire alarm or the microwave going off, a knock at the door, a cell phone ringing, things like that. And then we train psychiatric service dogs as well. So they'll alert to signs that somebody's having some anxiety or things like that.
I love that. Now, each program is specific to what service they're going into, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So all dogs are individuals, as we like to say here at Animal Farm Foundation, and all people are individuals as well. And you really have to find the right dog for the right person for the right task. So we really look at the dogs and say, and who we have lined up that has applications open to get a service dog and train the dogs accordingly to the person. And then we do go on to do training with the clients as well. For the lifetime of the dog, we provide training. So depending on what the person's needs are is how that dog's training is going to go.
Now, you just hit on something I want to kind of elaborate on. You said that you train the dog according to the person. So you said you had the applications. People applied for service dogs, and then you're like, okay, well, this one will be a good fit. It's like it's not trained yet, but they're kind of like in waiting. They're basically trained, but then you add the advanced training into it once you get that person with the application. Is that correct?
Yeah, when we first get the dogs into our facility, they have to go through a bunch of basic training that you're going to want your dog to do no matter what they go on to train for. They need to know how to sit and stay and do simple basic things like that. And then once we have a client ready, then we know, okay, well, this dog needs to open doors. So then we'll start the training on how to tug to open a door.
So basically the people that are applying, they don't get to go through and pick the dog they want. It's just kind of, you guys do the matchmaking for them.
Well, I will say we are really good matchmakers. But we do have our one of our service dogs, Brooklyn, and his handler, Eric, who he went and said, I really want this dog to work for me. He, was at our shelter having just a little powwow get together to talk about the program and meet some of the dogs that we thought would be a good match for him. And he said, no, I really like this dog. And we were like, I don't know. And we made it work for him. And they're like the best pair. They're in that video that you shared. And there'll be another video of him out soon, just him and Brooklyn doing their thing. And he couldn't be happier. So sometimes we matchmake and sometimes it works out differently.
Now, let's say someone is not local to, when you said you guys were in New York, right?
Yes.
Not local to the New York area, but need a service dog. Can they still contact you that way?
We only train for people that are within a 2-hour radius for us because we do so much follow-up training. It's important to keep people very local. For people that are not, I would just say Google your area and see what's available. It is a little bit harder to find places that train for free, but there's some grants and things out there that they should look into.
And obviously, if they contact you, you probably can kind of send them on the search, a first step on the search, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give us a call. We're happy to help and see, and help you look and see what's in your area and help you find the resources that you need. Absolutely.
So going through and finding these shelter dogs, is there a team that goes through shelters? You said within a 2-hour radius. Do you guys go through the 2-hour radius, or do people call you, shelters call you and say, hey, we got a couple of dogs down here we need you to come look at?
So in New England, there's not as many dogs as there is down south. Mm-hmm. So we tend to, pre-COVID, travel more to the southern states like Texas and Georgia, North Carolina, places like that, where there's population of dogs is way more, because the dogs up here that are going to make great service dogs are going home a lot quicker. And down there's just so many dogs that we can more easily find dogs that we're looking for in their shelter. So we would head down and tour all different shelters down there and take the dogs out. It's our director of behavior and training and the wonderful girls that work at the shelter that would go down and take a look at the dogs and see if they're going to be a good fit. Sometimes we'll take dogs from up here. It really depends. And then we get them here, and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. Like I said, we do have the adoption program, but our dogs are from all over the country. And sometimes shelters call us and say, hey, I think we have a dog that might fit. And we say, all right, we'll have them talk to our director of behavior and training. And she asks more questions because there's a lot that does go into it.
Okay, I have 2 questions for that, to follow up on that. One, do you prioritize the no kill over the kill shelters? Do you have a priority for that? And the second one is the transportation. How do you transport the animals back to where you guys are?
Yes. So we don't use language like no kill shelters. We think that all shelters are doing their best to keep dogs alive. And a lot of times it has to do with economic issues and not because they want to kill dogs. So we just look at shelters as a whole. We look and make sure that the shelters don't have any discriminatory policies. They're not adopting out pit bulls just because they're pit bulls, things like that. That, you don't really see too much anymore, happily, but sometimes you'll see, some age restrictions or things like that to dogs that are pit bulls for really just the reason of their label and nothing at all. So we do look at that, but otherwise we're just looking at the shelters as a whole and not, what their numbers are. And for transport, we have a wonderful team in Georgia that transports our dogs, most of our dogs for us. They do it for just because they love dogs and just amazing people. And they will just come on up and drop the dogs off for us. And then sometimes, depending on where we get the dogs from, we'll have our shelter folks, which we haven't done since COVID, but we'll go down and come back up and pick the dogs up. Or the shelters will just arrange transport based on what they normally do. So it really depends on the organization.
I love how you said you don't, because a lot in the South, you hear kill and no kill. People keep like saying, we need to get this dog out of this shelter because of their policies. And, I love how you guys don't discriminate about that. Now, you brought up something too, age restrictions. Do you look at a certain age for a dog to be a service dog? Is it kind of, because, a lot of the older dogs may not be a great fit for a service dog?
Right, because it takes a long time to train the dog. So you're looking at a year or more of training. So if you get a dog that's older and then you use up that some time for training and then they go to the clients, they don't have, dogs unfortunately don't live as long as we do. And so we have to really take that into account. So we usually look 18 months to 2 years old is the, guideline. But we certainly, we don't it's not set in stone. So if we find a dog that's fabulous, that's outside of those parameters, it means that we might take that dog anyway.
Yeah, I love that because honestly, I don't think, Gigi is 3, she'll be 4 this year, but I don't think Gigi wouldn't fit into your program because she's skittish. She's very skittish, but she fits as a household pet because she is so lovable. But thank you so much for everything you're doing to raise awareness about these dogs because they deserve so much love. And I know that our local animal shelter, when they start listing dogs, because they have a page on Facebook, they don't list the breed of the dog. I mean, obviously you can look at the dog, but they don't list the breed because they feel like it's discriminatory toward the dog.
Well, one of the things that we do for work is with our work is we inform shelters and just the general public that you cannot look at a dog and know what it is. So if a dog's coming into your shelter and you're guessing at a breed, you're making that up. And then what happens there is stereotypes for those breeds, no matter what they are being put on them with the public. So say my neighbor had a boxer and you're labeling a dog a boxer mix, and I didn't necessarily like the neighbor's dog because it would bark at me through the fence. Then I'm going to be like, oh no, I'm going to pass that dog along because of that label that's very arbitrary. And we don't know any, even if that dog is a boxer, we don't know if it's going to do the things that your previous guy did. So it makes it a lot easier to say, we don't know what any dog is, but here's their personality and what are you looking for in a dog? That's most important.
And a lot of it goes back to the owners and how they train their dogs too, as well, because some of the owners do train their dogs to be vicious. And I think that's where they're trying to place the blame on the dog instead of how they were trained.
Right. Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
So is there anything else that you want to share with us?
I think that's it. I just think it's so important that everybody takes away, just know that every dog is an individual and looks don't equal behavior. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, so thank you so much for coming on, Nikki. And I am actually going to remove both of us from the screen and leave everybody with this cute little face that's behind me. I uploaded a picture just so that we could have a face so people can know what we're talking about. And you look at this face and tell me this is not the cutest dog ever. Oops. I'm trying to get her back up here. What happened? Here we go.
She is gorgeous.
So guys, we will see you on the next chat from the Blog Cabin. And Nikki, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye guys.